In 2008, I was confronted to yet again several days of very intense experiences around me curing myself from ME and my sister dying, all in the space of a week, the same week. So a bit of background. I had been ill with ME for a year, and I did a technique called the lightning process, where you learn about neurological connections in your brain that maintains an illness, and you can have spontaneous remission. And on the second day I had the spontaneous remission. And that night, after I had my spontaneous remission, I woke up early in the morning, like when my husband died, and went back to sleep. And the way I live it is like literally I'm in my bedroom, I wake up, realize it's very early, close my eyes again, and boom, I'm somewhere else. But that somewhere else is even more real than me being here. And I won't go into the details of that place, but in that place, in that other dimension, in that other space, which was super real, super precise, at one point I collapsed and I came out of my body. And the way I came out of my body was by being a ball like that, this size. And this ball of energy, which was, let's say, my spirit, my essence, that ball of energy could travel at incredible speed, go through matter, and that's part of that experience. But anyway, the next day, out of the blue, we get a phone call to tell us that my sister has got leukemia. In those days, she was living in Haiti, so we had no means of being with her, and in fact she didn't have leukemia, she had acute leukemia. So it was a massive shock. And my mom, who had been looking after me and my daughter whilst I was ill with ME, because I was in my recovery phase now, we decided she would go back to Paris, because my sister was going to be flown from Paris, from Port-au-Prince to Paris, to receive proper medical support. So on the second night after I was cured, I wake up in the middle of the night, or rather around 4 a.m., and I'm in a state of awe, heightened energy and heightened super elation. I think the word would be elation and awe, because I had just lived being in pure white light and being with beings of light. One word would be angels, but they were beings of light, and I knew it had to do with my sister, with Cathy, and Cathy was kind of there, or it was her, and all that show of light and angels and beings of light had to do with her. And I came out of this incredible vision. Again, it's, as I said to start with, it's a vision that my brain has difficulties really retaining, but I know of the intensity and I know of what I've lived, was such that despite the fact that I was just recovering from ME, where I hadn't really been able to walk for a year, I found myself in the middle of the night dancing in my flat, and I was dancing and I was singing and I was laughing, and because I was like, that was extraordinary, that's the most beautiful thing I've ever experienced. It has put me in a state of deep euphoria, and I know it has to do with my sister, and that was just so extraordinary beyond anything that could be the most extraordinary thing I could live on this planet. So I was dancing, I was in that completely incredible state, and I was like, wow. And that was the night my sister was flying from Haiti to Paris. So I was like, wow, well, as soon as she arrives in Paris and I can speak to her, I'm going to tell her she's got angels around her, and I wasn't really into angels, so, but I was in that incredible space. And as the morning progressed, very quickly, that euphoria completely collapsed into a dread, a profound dread that was destroying me inside of me. And that dread was Cathy's died. And again, it was like a knowing that had nothing to do with my rational mind. And finally, I dropped my daughter to her friends and I walked back to our house, and I was walking very slowly, and I was in my head having an internal dialogue with Cathy, with my sister. And I was kind of saying to her, it's okay, you can die, you can be dead, it's okay, you know, I'll cope. And I was really talking from a place of profound compassion for her and kind of reassuring her, it's okay, I'll cope and all of that. And suddenly I caught myself in that mental and emotional space, and I was so angry at myself, and I was like, how dare you be negative like that, how dare you think Cathy has died. And I was almost in self-hatred. Anyway, when I arrived home, I straight away rang my dad, because by now Cathy should be in France, she should be in a hospital, because she would have landed in France around 6 a.m. So I rang my dad, who very slowly broke the news to me of what had happened, which in fact my sister boarded the plane with her husband. She kind of entered the coma as she boarded the plane. An hour later, the plane was in Guadeloupe. She had to be rushed in hospital, and within a few hours, she died. So she died around 10 p.m. in Guadeloupe, which was 4 a.m. my time. So exactly the time when I had that extraordinary connection with her. So I can honestly say that losing my sister is one of the most painful events of my life. But I have to also say that what I have experienced, which was the moment of her death, in fact, is and remains to be the most extraordinary experience I've ever had. It was the most beautiful, the most awe-inspiring, elating moments, and I feel extremely privileged that I was able somehow to have a glimpse to, I don't know if I was invited there or how come I was able to have a glimpse of that event, but I have. So again, a huge contrast between the pain of losing my sister and this incredible event who has shaped who I've become. 4 days after Cathy died, I was in France with my brother, my mom and my dad, and we decided my dad would go to Haiti for the funeral. Anyway, we were all reunited. It was very, very painful. And finally, everybody leaves. My brother goes back to his work, and I'm on my own with my mom. And it was late in the evening, and I could hear my mom. My mom just went into shock after Cathy died, and I could see the lights in my mom's bedroom. So I went to speak with my mom, and she was just like totally blanked. And we were just talking and trying to be with our own suffering. And finally I went back to my bedroom, and I went into bed, and I remember I lied like that. And as soon as I lied like that, a ball of energy about this big literally landed just there and stopped just there above my shoulder. And it felt that this ball was traveling at a speed I cannot comprehend, but a speed like I had never experienced anyway. I've never experienced anything like that, and I've never heard of someone else telling me about a story like that. It happened very fast, so I'm very distraught, just been with my mom who was very distressed, go to bed, lying like that, shoom, this thing that's flying and comes to me at an incredible speed, arrives and stops just there. And in my mind it went very, very fast, and I went like, oh my God, I've never experienced anything like that. This thing is very strongly there, this ball. Cathy's just died. It must be Cathy. Are you Cathy? And instantly as I asked the question, are you Cathy? Shoo, it's as if this ball touched me, merged with me, and here in my right shoulder I felt warmth, and only there in my body. And this warmth entered my body and my being became completely infused in peace. Again, a peace I've never experienced. A very profound peace, a peace that, I don't know, I've never experienced a peace like that since. And actually moved, which I now regret because I think maybe I've disrupted something, but I moved in my bed. And that was it. I was just left with this warm shoulder and this incredible peace that lasted several days. Again, it is not after several days, several weeks, several months of starting to integrate those events that I looked back. And I remembered that exactly the week before was the day I had that experience when I was doing the lightning process, where in my state of awareness of being in another dimension, I collapsed and out of my body. I came out of my body and traveled as a ball of energy that big. So again, it was like, was I shown something? Was I explained something so that I could receive Cathy? I don't have the answers to those questions. How could I perceive with what sensory organ? Now I know we've got psychic awareness, we've got all sorts of other senses. But those are very profound moments, even if they are very, very short in time. This encounter with the ball must have lasted only 2 seconds, very, very quick. But so powerful that this is why I do the work I do now around death.